All right, for today, 6.1, our purpose statement is the student will be able to explain and describe the parts of polynomials. Our vocab that we should know: monomial, binomial, trinomial, degree, and leading coefficient. Now, hopefully some of these terms are familiar to you. Monomial, well, let's start with polynomial. Polynomial, poly means many, and nomial is terms. So polynomials is many terms. Mono means one, so monomial is one term. Bi is two, so binomial is two terms. Trinomial, three terms, and so on. Probably new terms for you might be degree and leading coefficient, which we'll get to explaining in a minute. So, a monomial. Remember, a monomial is a number or a product of numbers and variables. So in other words, if it's all multiplied together, then it's one term, so it's a monomial. Terms are separated by addition and subtraction signs. So it doesn't make any difference how many numbers or variables I have in this, it will still be a monomial if it's all multiplied together. But we can take this same numbers and variables and write it this way: 4x squared plus yz. And because it's separated, we basically have two monomials, and so this would be a binomial because it's two terms. If we took the exact same ones, that would be a trinomial because, again, terms are separated by addition or subtraction signs. So that would be three terms. So a polynomial is just the sum or difference of a group of monomials. So again, separated by addition, subtraction signs. So we have, this would be a binomial because it's two terms. And here we have addition and subtraction. And again, these could be multiple addition signs or multiple subtraction signs, but that would be a trinomial because it's three terms. So you've probably seen this in Algebra 1. The degree could be something new for you. The degree of a monomial, so a single term, the sum of the exponents of the variables. So in this case, x to the third, there's only one variable and the power is 3, so it's degree 3. Now, basically what it is how many variables do you have? In this case, x to the third means I have 3 x's, and so it's degree 3. If it's x squared, 3x squared y cubed, then it's degree 5 because I have 2 x's and 3 y's, so you just add the exponents. Things you have to be careful on, remember, this would be 2 plus 3. Remember, if there is no exponent given, it's to the first power. So this would be degree 6. So that's if it's a monomial. You find the degree by simply adding the exponents of the variables. Also, if you had something like this, 3 cubed x squared, the degree would still be 2. Because remember, it's only the exponents of the variables. If there's exponents on the numbers, that does not affect the degree. The next thing we're going to look at is the degree of the polynomial. So the degree of the polynomial is simply the term with the highest degree. So when you look at this trinomial, this has degree 2, this has degree 1. If you don't have a variable, that would be degree 0, and so the highest one is 2, so the degree of the polynomial would be 2. This would be degree 3. 1 plus 5 is 6, so this would be degree 6. Whichever one's the highest is the answer. So the degree of this polynomial would be degree 6. So you just take each term separately, find the one with the highest degree. Standard form. Standard form is terms of the polynomials with one variable. So we're just talking about one variable now. Either whether it's all x's or all y's or all a's, doesn't make any difference. Are written in order from the highest to lowest degree. So this is in standard form because it goes degree 5, degree 2, degree 0. This is in standard form because it goes degree 3, degree 2, degree 1, degree 0. So sometimes what they're going to ask you to do is write things in standard form. Let's go. Okay, so they're going to ask you to put things in standard form. Standard form would be this is degree 3, 2, 5, 0. So highest to lowest. So as you can see, what we've done so far has been fairly easy to do. As long as we understand the notes, we can put it in the forms that they've asked for and found the degree. The leading coefficient is probably a new term for you. First of all, the word coefficient. Coefficient is simply the number multiplied to the variable. So this would be coefficient of 7. This term would have a coefficient of 3. There's no variable, so there's no coefficient. The coefficient of 4x to the third is 4. 7x squared is 7. Negative 5x is negative 5, and then nothing with the next one. So the coefficient is the number multiplied to the variable. So the leading coefficient, if it's in standard form, it's the coefficient of the first term. So the leading coefficient in this case is 4 because it is here. Now, if it's not in standard form, if they ask you to find the leading coefficient here, it's not the 4, it's if it was in standard form. So you have two choices. You can put it in standard form, or you can just look and say, well, my first term is going to be the term with the highest degree. So my term with the highest degree is right here, and so my leading coefficient is negative 8. I don't need to put it in standard form to get the leading coefficient. I just need to know which term would be the first term, and that would be your leading coefficient. So it's called the leading coefficient because if it's in standard form, it's the first thing you're going to come to. If it's not in standard form, it is not necessarily the first thing. So in this case, I don't need to do this. I can just say the leading coefficient is negative 8. If you want to put it in standard form, that's fine. But if they don't ask, it's just an extra step that you don't really need to do. So what they're going to ask you to do is they're going to ask you to simplify. This would be everything they could ask you to do in the assignment. Simplify. They could ask you to write the answer in standard form. They could ask you to give the degree of the polynomial. They could ask you to name the leading coefficient. They could ask you to classify it by degree and number of terms. Now, when they ask you to classify by degree, this chart's in your book, so I'll put that up so you can see it. So this chart's on page 407 in your book. And if they ask you to classify the polynomial by degree, the degree, if it's degree 0, that would be called a constant. If it's degree 1, it would be linear. Degree 2 would be a quadratic. Degree 3 would be cubic. Degree 4 would be quartic. And degree 5 would be quintic. So if I was asked to classify this term, I would say it is a quintic. Now, if it's one term, you say monomial, 2 terms binomial, 3 terms trinomial. If it's more than 3, like on this one, you would just say a quintic polynomial with 6 terms. So if it's more than 3, just say polynomial with and then how many terms it has. So this would be quartic polynomial with 5 terms. This would be a cubic polynomial with 4 terms. This would be a quadratic with 3 terms. Excuse me, quadratic trinomial. This would be a linear binomial, and this would just be a constant monomial. So it all depends. You can have a quintic. If it said x to the 5th, that would be a quintic monomial. So when they ask you to classify it by degree and by number of terms, that's how you're going to write your answer. So I'll show you on this example. So let's go through this. So the first thing we're going to do is simplify. So when you simplify, this is just subtraction. Now, my advice again is anytime you have a subtraction, change it to addition and change the sign of everything in the parentheses that follows it. So we're going to combine like terms. So I always start with my highest term so I can put it in standard form as I go. So the highest term we have is 5y to the fourth, and there are no other y to the fourths. Now my recommendation is after you use something, cross it off so that you don't use it twice or don't forget something. Then my next highest power is y to the third. There are no other y to the third, so minus 7y to the third. So that's gone. Then I have 3y squared plus 4y squared is 7y squared. That's gone. My next highest power is y, and there are no other y's, so just minus y. And then negative 7 plus 6 would be a negative 1. And I have used up combined all the like terms, and I've finished that. So this is my standard form. So I put it in standard form. The next thing it asked me to do, well, we simplified it too at the same time, so we took care of both of those at once. Now it says to give the degree. Well, they're all one variable, so in this case, my degree, and you can just abbreviate degree with a D, degree is 4. So we took care of that. Then it asks to name the leading coefficient. It's in standard form, so it's the first term. So my leading coefficient, again, just abbreviate that, is 5. And then the last thing it says classify by the degree. Well, my degree is 4, so that's quartic. So that's quartic. And we have 5 terms, so a quartic polynomial with 5 terms. And that's what you do on that. Now there's one last thing they're going to ask you to do on the assignment, and that is to use a graphing calculator. If you don't have access to one of those, you'll just have to do it when you're in the classroom. But they're going to ask you to graph, let's say f of x equals x cubed plus 3x plus 1. And they're going to ask you to describe the graph, what it looks like. Now, we don't need to, the things I know, if it's cubic, that means it's going up at one end and down at the other. And if it's positive, it means it's always going up to the right. So this graph is going to look something to this effect. Okay? It will usually show a change, one less change than the exponent. So we have 2 changes here. But sometimes it can get pretty flat in there and you can't tell how many it has. But if it's odd, it will be going up one end and down the other. When they ask you to describe it, I don't care if you say it's going down to the left and up to the right, or if you just want to draw a graph, look at the graph on the calculator and do a freehand graph of that. The big thing they're going to ask for you is the number of real zeros. Now remember, the real zeros occur where the graph crosses the x-axis. So in this case, if this graph is correct, there would be 1. If the graph was up here, then there would be 3. Remember, it can't cross. The highest degree tells me how many answers I'm going to have. So it can't be more than 3 times it crosses or you've got a mistake on your graph. But all you have to do is type it in the calculator in the y equals and type it into the calculator and get the graph and just tell me how many real zeros it has. If you want to do a freehand graph of it, that's fine. But all I really want out of this is how many real zeros it has. So that's it for today. Hopefully you find this assignment fairly easy to do. The assignment is page 410, numbers 19 to 39 the odds. So you have 11 problems. Get this done, and then if you have any back work, get that done. So thanks. Good luck.